Hi, eighth graders. Welcome to another day of learning. And today it's going to be a fun sort of day because instead of being required to write a whole lot, we are going to learn how to write less. Yes, I said less. We're going to learn today to write a summary for something we read. We are going to learn the basic steps or the basic elements for writing a summary. Let's get started. Today we're going to complete slide assignments in a PearDeck presentation. We are going to practice summarizing passages that your teacher will assign through Google Classroom, and we're going to summarize the story from Mrs. Flowers with our teacher's assistance. Before we can do any of those major activities, the first thing we need to do is take a look at our SlideShow so that we are able to understand the key elements of a summary. So let's review. What is a summary? What is the definition of a summary? And what is an example of a summary? Then let's look at another passage. Let's read it and let's write a quick main idea of the story. We do need to take a quick look at genre, which is the different type of writing or the different types of writing we will be reading as we read more and more as we grow. We're going to look at the 5 W's and the H, the 5 question words: who, what, when, where, why, and then that 6th letter H, how, to help us identify the main idea and central idea of what we read. We're going to write a summary, and we're going to review the rules for writing a summary just before we jump into practicing the skill of writing summaries. So, what is a summary? A summary is simply a brief statement of something. If we summarize something, we're briefly stating in our own words the main points from the text we read. Whenever we are reading, we want to pause and summarize in our own minds what we have read. That helps us understand and remember what we are reading. When we are writing, a good summary is much, much shorter than the original. Actually, when we are speaking or texting, a good summary is also much shorter than the original. We usually want to only include the main idea of what we are reading, and we want to include the very most important details. Here's an example of how to write a text summary, a very quick text summary. We read the poem, or actually this was a nursery rhyme, which is in the genre of poetry. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating some curds and whey. Along came a spider who sat down beside her and frightened Miss Muffet away. So, in short, ladies and gentlemen, when we are going to summarize a text, we first want to read it and then we want to annotate it. Remember our annotation rules? The main idea of something, we want to put a star beside it. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating curds and whey, and then a spider sat down beside her and frightened her away. That word tuffet I'm going to circle because I'm not sure what it means. I'm looking at the words around it, and I'm guessing it might mean some sort of a stool. What was the main idea or the main event of this whole nursery rhyme or poem? A little girl sat down. She was eating her breakfast. A spider sat down beside her and scared her away. So, who? It was Little Miss Muffet. What? She sat down and she was eating her breakfast, and a spider came along and scared her away. When? We're not really sure when it happened. We're not sure when someone would eat curds and whey. Do they eat it for breakfast or do they eat it for dinner? Is that really important? That seems not like a very important detail for this. Where did it happen? We just know that Muffet was sitting on a tuffet. We've still got to look that word up to find the definition. Why? Why did she run away? Because the spider frightened her. How? We're not really sure how anything. We just know that this little person, Miss Muffet, was eating. The spider scared her away. So if I wanted to write a summary for this, I would probably very quickly go through and answer the who. Little Miss Muffet and the spider. What happened? Little Miss Muffet sat. The spider sat. It frightened her away. We don't really have any information about when this happened. We know that it happened on a tuffet and the spider sat somewhere nearby. We don't know why the spider sat nearby. We don't know why Miss Muffet was afraid of the spider, but she was. And how? We don't really have a how here. We don't have a first, second. We don't have a step-by-step process here. It was just a girl eating her cereal, and she was terrified of the spiders as she ran away. So what would the short version be? The summary of this nursery rhyme or poem, Little Miss Muffet, a spider scared a girl away. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. The summary would be a spider scared a girl away. We visited earlier Humpty Dumpty. Let's see how quickly you can write a summary for the following text. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. We annotated this in an earlier lesson, so we won't go back and do it. Very quickly, take a look at the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and you take a chance at writing a summary in your PearDeck right now. You may want to hit pause while you do this. All right, so hopefully you wrote very quickly that an egg, or maybe even just a person, sat on a wall, he fell off, was all broken up and couldn't be put together again. That would be the summary of Humpty Dumpty. So, we're 8th graders. As 8th graders, we've got to work on doing a little bit more than summarizing nursery rhymes. A good summary, ladies and gentlemen, is short. It contains general information about the story rather than the small details. So what I want you to do right now is take a moment to click on this text, The Ant and the Grasshopper by Aesop. Aesop wrote a lot of fables. The Ant and the Grasshopper was a fable. I want you to type the title and the author in the passage on the PearDeck prompt that's given for you to write. Type the title and the author, and then I want you to jot down that this is a fable. After that, I want you to read and watch the fable that is read to you and write the main idea of the passage. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. When you are finished, you can continue with this lesson. So you'll hit pause for now, do what you need to do with your PearDeck, and then we will continue. Alrighty, I hope you wrote down your summary of the ant and the grasshopper, and I hope that you wrote something that looks like what we have on the bottom left corner of this screen that says The Ant and the Grasshopper by Aesop is a fable. It tells a story of how an ant's hard work allows for him to survive a winter, while a grasshopper's lack of preparation leaves him without what he needs for the winter. Ladies and gentlemen, a summary takes an entire story, an entire passage, and just gives a few words to explain what it was all about. Very quickly, the genres. This is a list of different types of genres, the things that you will read, things in your life that you will be exposed to. They will be stories, they will be fiction, they will be nonfiction. Today we talked about nursery rhymes, which were poems, and those could very quickly go under poetry. The story of the grasshopper and the ant would be a fable. Whenever you're writing a summary, it helps to write what the genre of the text is. So, as we move forward, make sure you include that when you're writing a quick summary of any type of text. Let's keep moving. As we are growing, we know that nursery rhymes and fairy tales and fables from our childhood are easy to summarize. They usually have one main idea or one theme, and as we are able to read longer in texts, we need to have tools for organizing our thoughts from what we read. Below is one tool you may want to use to collect the main or central ideas of what we read. So as we are reading Mrs. Flowers, you want to stop and write the main characters. Why? Why are things happening? Usually when you are answering a why question while you are reading, you are looking for reasons. Why are things happening? You're going to write the reasons that are explained within the text. What? What are the events of the story? What? First, next, then, and last. What happens, what happens, what happens? When? Can you give a time that something is happening? Remember, ladies and gentlemen, time is not just the minutes or the seconds on a clock. It could be a date. So when would include times and dates. Where? Where is something happening? When we are talking about where, we're talking about location, location, location. What is the place? And how? What are the steps that occurred for something to be exposed? You may be reading a recipe, and in the summary, you may quickly say first, next, then, and finally. Those are the type of responses you will give for how. So, ladies and gentlemen, who, what, when, where, why, and how. We need to answer those questions as we read. When we are able to answer those questions and we are finished with the passage or the text we are reading, we should be more than prepared to write a quick summary. So, as we read our 8th grade text, Mrs. Flowers, you will want to type in the title, Mrs. Flowers, and the author, Maya Angelou. Ladies and gentlemen, we know this is an autobiography. That is something else you will want to type in for your summary. You'll want to draw a grid and pencil in question words. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. As we read, right now we're reading Mrs. Flowers, we want to add key details to answer the questions. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. I encourage you to hold on to that one slide that helps you understand what you're looking for. As you use those questions, your ability to summarize will become stronger and stronger. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had a couple of lessons on making annotations. Make annotations in your text. Go back and look at Mrs. Flowers. Look at the line numbers. Make annotations. Where you have the why, you may just want to write see line 15. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you go through the text, make sure you're asking yourself the 5 W's, the 1 H, and you are making annotations. Let's practice using this passage. When we are finished, I want you to hit pause from the passage. When I'm finished reading the passage, hit pause and go in to your PearDeck and see if you can answer the questions who, what, when, where, why, and how. Let's read this passage together. The English were not the first Europeans to land their ships on American soil. The Vikings had discovered North America in the 11th century. Columbus landed in the Bahamas in 1492 from Spain, and the French began their expeditions to the New World in 1524. But the first English presence in North America is important because the 13 English colonies that would later be established eventually became the country now known as the United States of America. Hit pause right now. Go and answer your PearDeck response. to who, what, when, where, why, and how. Good luck with typing this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so from the details that we collected using the 5W and H method, who, what, when, where, why, and how, we will want to take the information and write what the text says using only the key information. Who? Columbus. Was Columbus really important to this? Probably not. What? We know that the what English were not the first Europeans in Americas, and that the English started the first 13 colonies were the main ideas from that passage. But the most important is that the English were not the first Europeans. How do we know this? The passage took a lot of time to explain the other explorers. In the 11th century, there were the Vikings. In 1492, the Spanish, and in 1524, the French visited the Americas. But the English were the ones that started the first 13 colonies. Do we know much about how? No, the passage didn't give us much about that. Did the passage give us much about why? Why did the English start it? Why didn't the Vikings? Why didn't the French or the Spanish? No, that wasn't really given to us in this passage. But the where, the Americas, that was given to us. That was crucial information. And the fact that Christopher Columbus was from Spain didn't really belong in part of the summary that we're about to give. So, for my summary to this passage, I would probably write, even though the English started the first 13 colonies, they were not the first Europeans in America. The Vikings, the Spanish, and the French first visited America. That is the summary from that very large passage we just read. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, a summary is a short version of the text you read with the main ideas. We read the passage, we wrote a quick summary. Our summary was one sentence. The passage was a lot of sentences. Let's see, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences. Our summary was one. Ladies and gentlemen, a summary is simply stating the main idea, the main information from something you read. So, it's time for you to begin writing summaries. Remember the rules for writing summaries. Begin your summary with the title or the main idea that you pull right out of the text. Include your author's name if it is given. Write your summary in present tense. You are reading the text and stating exactly what the text says now. Right now you're reading it, so right now this is what your summary is going to say. Keep it in present tense. Use only the very most important main ideas from your text, and those were the things that you found in answering the who, what, when, where, why, and how. If you use exact words of the author, use your quotes and citation. Normally in a summary, you just want to use your own words and very few of them to explain what the text says. Keep it short. You want to explain the text in a brief manner. Only include the main ideas and most important details. Do not put your opinions, do not put your ideas or your interpretation into the summary. Only state what the passage says. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're writing a summary, you just want to take whatever it is you read and shorten it to where it just makes sense to someone who didn't read it. What was it all about? So, as we read, we're going to use those processes we just reviewed to help with remembering more and more of what we read. Today, we're going to complete the slide assignments in this PearDeck presentation. You're going to practice summarizing passages in assignments from your teacher, and you're going to summarize the story Mrs. Flowers with your teacher's assistants, however they may decide for you to write a summary of Mrs. Flowers. Go forth, have a great day of working on summarizing and learning a little more as you venture toward ninth grade and master the skills in English language arts of being an eighth grader. Go forth and summarize. Take care.